Greetings. I don't know who, but someone uploaded a trilingual edition of the Torah. And in this short video, I'd like to look at some interesting readings, and specifically Deuteronomy 33:26. I'll share a link to the text in the video description, but I also wanted to put the URL on the screen so I could share something about that URL which interested readers might find worthy of note. There are two sets of numbers in the URL, and that first number represents the particular book of the Torah that's being looked at. So in this case, the number is 5, referring to the fifth book of the Pentateuch of the Torah, that being Deuteronomy. If you change that to a number 1, you'll get Genesis. If you change it to number 2, you'll get Exodus, and so on. And then the second number refers to a specific division or Torah section within that book. Or if you just delete the two sets of numbers and the PDF and put in the URL like this, you'll get a directory of the 5 different books and the different divisions therein. Anyway, getting to the text itself, I want to explain the structure of each page. The largest text in bold is the original Hebrew text of the Torah. Then interspersed with that text is text in a smaller font, which is the ancient Jewish Aramaic translation of Targum Onqelos. And then in a column unto itself is even slightly smaller text with Tafsir al-Sag at the top, which is the medieval Judeo-Arabic translation of Saᶜdiah Gaon. And by Judeo-Arabic, I mean even though the text is written in Hebrew characters, the language is Arabic. And now with that explanation, we can scroll to specifically Deuteronomy 33:26. And really, I just want to focus on the first 3 words, which read, Ein Ka'el Yeshurun, there is none like the God of Jeshurun, or the God of Israel, with Yeshurun being a sort of poetic reference to Israel. Now, turning first to Saᶜdiah Gaon's Judeo-Arabic translation, he renders the part about nothing being like him as Laysa Kamithlihi. And again, this is simply Arabic written in the Hebrew script. And by the way, quick technical note, that diacritic that looks like an apostrophe is a geresh. And in Judeo-Arabic, when the geresh appears after the tau, it's to signify the Arabic tha, in contrast to the Arabic ta. Transcribing that back into the corresponding characters of the Arabic script, those familiar with the Quran will notice that it's exactly like a line from the 42nd chapter of the Quran, Surah Ash-Shura, 11th verse, so 42:11, which has a line that's often repeated in Muslim circles. It's very well known amongst Muslims, which is Laysa Kamithlihi Shay, which is, there's no thing that's like him or like his likeness, being in reference to God. Now, Saᶜdiah Gaon lived in 10th century Baghdad in what's now Iraq, and so one might say that his reading was influenced by Muslims, or perhaps even influenced by the Quran itself. So with that in mind, I'd like to now turn to the Jewish Aramaic translation of Targum Onqelos, which is pre-Islamic. And the relevant portion I want to look at reads Letela Ela Elaha. Actually, the very next word is De Israel. So Letela Ela Elaha De Israel. There is, literally it means there is no God except the God of Israel. But just looking at these first 4 words, it reads, as I said, Letela Ela Elaha, there is no God except the God. That second word is Aramaic's general word for deity, Elah. And the 4th word, Elaha, is the word for the God, the one true God. And you might notice that these 2 words, Elah and Elaha, are nearly identical, save for the fact that Elaha has a terminal aleph suffixed to the end of it. In Aramaic, that terminal aleph is the definite article. So while Elah means a general word for deity, Elaha is literally the God. And now I'd like to transcribe or transliterate those 4 words into the corresponding characters of the Arabic script. And I want to be clear here that what you see on the screen is not a translation into Arabic. Rather, it's merely a transliteration of the Aramaic phrase in Arabic characters. That first word, late, is the negation. And it's the Aramaic equivalent of a corresponding Arabic word, which we saw a little bit earlier in the video. That word being lace, which we saw in Laysa Kamithlihi. So I've changed the word late to the Arabic lace here in this second line. And now I'm jumping to the fourth word, skipping over the second and third words because those second and third words are already the exact Arabic equivalents. As I said earlier, that fourth word, Eloha, it means the God. It's the general word for deity with the definite article. However, the definite article in Aramaic takes the form of an alif at the end, as I said earlier, while in Arabic, the definite article takes the form of an alif lam at the start. So now I've changed the Aramaic word Eloha to the Arabic word al-Ilah. And with those slight adjustments, we now have a coherent Arabic sentence, Laysa ilah illa alillah. There is no God except the God. And at this point, one should notice that this seems very similar to the first half of the Shahada of the Islamic Creed of Faith, which reads La ilaha illallah. The only differences being the first word uses a different negation, la, instead of laysa, and the last word uses Allah instead of al-Ilah. Not everyone agrees with the idea that Allah is a contraction of al-Ilah, but I personally am partial to that idea. And so I'd say that this ancient pre-Islamic Jewish Aramaic phrase, Letela ela alaha, is an Aramaic equivalent of the famous Arabic statement, La ilaha illallah. And before I close, I'd like to note that this distinction in Aramaic between Elah, the general word for deity, and Elaha, the word for the God, can also be found in biblical Aramaic. So here we are in Daniel 3:14, where Nebuchadnezzar is quoted as referring to Elahai, my gods. That's the general word for deity with the possessive suffix, Elahai, right? And keeping that in mind, we can contrast that with what's found in Daniel 3:26. Here it is, verse 26, where Nebuchadnezzar is recorded as referring to the one true God as Elaha. So there's the general word for deity, Elah, and then there's the God, the one true God, the God of Daniel, Elaha. Quick technical note, the difference between my gods, plural, and my God, singular, Elahai and Elahi, is basically a diacritic. So I wanted to turn to the Septuagint, where you can find the plural, theois. This is the Septuagint rendered of Daniel 3:14. And then when you turn the page to verse 26, bear with me for a second, you see instead God with a definite article, o theos. So the Septuagint provides a pre-Masoretic interpretation along these lines. And anyway, getting back to this phrase in Targum Onqelos, this distinction between Elah and Elaha has relevance to the distinction in Arabic between Ilah and Allah. Now, I want to make clear that even though I'm making reference to Islamic statements and Quranic statements, I am not a Muslim, and this is not some sort of apologetic on behalf of Islam. However, what I want to touch on here is the phenomenon of certain Christians, seemingly mostly English-speaking Christians, who try to polemicize against the word Allah in their polemics against Islam, not realizing that, the word Allah is not the exclusive domain of Muslims. So when they polemicize against the word Allah, they're inadvertently slandering Arabic-speaking Christians. And so I have two crude polemics in mind. The first one seeks to dispute that the word Allah corresponds to the English word God by saying, if Allah simply means God, then why don't you say there's no Allah but Allah, right? This is a polemic I see some people use, not realizing that the distinction between the general word for deity, Ilah, and the word for the God, the one true God, Allah, corresponds perfectly with a phenomenon that we just saw in biblical Aramaic in the book of Daniel, where there's a distinction between the general word for deity, Elah, and the one true God, the God of Daniel, Elaha. The second crude polemic that I've seen is where the polemicist will note that Islamic sources say that the pre-Islamic Arab polytheists in Mecca worshipped not only a variety of deities, but also worshipped Allah amongst them. And so therefore they say, Allah is a reference to just another one of these pagan deities. However, quote unquote pagans or polytheists recognizing a number of gods and then also recognizing the true God, assuming we can use the word Allah to refer to the true God as Arabic Christians do, would be no different from the situation that we saw in Daniel 3, where Nebuchadnezzar was, on the one hand, referring to the gods, plural, that he worshipped, but then also referring to and recognizing the one true God, Elohah, the God of Daniel. So just as the polytheist Nebuchadnezzar recognizing Elohah amongst other gods does not mean we have to reject the word Elohah, a biblical term for God, then so too, by the same logic, Arab polytheists in pre-Islamic times recognizing Allah amongst other deities doesn't mean we have to therefore discard the word Allah as a reference to the one true God, the supreme God, the only God. On that note, I'll close here. I hope others found this interesting. Mainly, my intention here was only to show some of the linguistic affinities or similarities between, a couple of popular Arabic statements and what was found in this trilingual edition of Deuteronomy 33:26, in a Jewish edition of the Torah, a rabbinic trilingual edition of the Torah. On that note, I'll close here, and as always, I look forward to the comments of others, and so I'll stop here and say to all, God bless.